You sit down at your desk, 9 in the morning, coffee still hot, calendar pings, meeting in 3 minutes. You join the call, camera on, box full of faces staring back. And somewhere in the next 8 hours, you will join 15 more of these. By the time you close your laptop, you will feel drained in a way that makes no sense. You talked, you listened, you never left your chair, but your brain feels like you ran a marathon through concrete. So why does sitting still somehow exhaust you more than moving does? And why are the people keeping their cameras off the ones who might actually be working harder than everyone else? If you value documented workplace psychology and neuroscience research like this, subscribe. It is the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you are hearing this from. This script is researched and factual. Using sources from the Journal of Applied Psychology published in August 2021 by Shockley, Gabriel and colleagues at the University of Arizona Eller College of Management, a 4-week experimental study with 103 participants and over 1,400 observations, tracking fatigue and engagement. And Technology, Mind, and Behavior from Stanford, published February 2021 by Jeremy Bailenson, breaking down the 4 root causes of video conference exhaustion through peer-reviewed psychological analysis. Now, back to the information. March 2020, the world shuts down. 10 million people used Zoom daily in December 2019. By April 2020, that number explodes to 300 million. Google Meet triples its traffic. Microsoft Teams goes from 20 million to 75 million users in 6 weeks. Face-to-face meetings vanish overnight. Video calls replace everything. Morning stand-up, lunch catch-up, afternoon sync, evening debrief, back-to-back. No travel time between them. No hallway break. Just click. Next meeting. Click. Next meeting. And within weeks, a term enters the language that will not go away. Zoom fatigue, not tiredness. Fatigue, the kind that sits in your bones. The kind that makes you want to turn your phone off and stare at a wall. Researchers scramble to understand what is happening. Why are people collapsing after doing nothing? August 2021, Journal of Applied Psychology publishes findings that flip the conversation. Researchers run a controlled 4-week experiment with 103 remote workers at healthcare company Broadpath. They split people into 2 groups. Group 1 keeps cameras on for 2 weeks, then off for 2 weeks. Group 2 does the opposite. Every single day, workers fill out surveys about how they feel, energy levels, fatigue, engagement, voice in meetings. 1,400 observations pile up. The data comes back clear. When cameras are on, fatigue spikes. When cameras go off, fatigue drops. Not a little, significantly. The number of hours in meetings does not predict fatigue. Camera use does. Being watched is the variable that breaks people. But who breaks harder? Women report higher fatigue than men when cameras stay on. New employees, the ones still trying to prove themselves, feel it worse than veterans. The pattern holds across every measurement. Cameras on equals exhaustion, cameras off equals relief. Lead researcher Allison Gabriel, McClelland Professor of Management at University of Arizona, frames it simply. Employees need autonomy. Forcing cameras on assumes disengagement. Giving choice respects that people know how to do their jobs. Gabriel's team publishes the study. Media picks it up. Headlines run. Turning off your camera makes you more productive. Counterintuitive. True. February 2021. Stanford publishes a separate analysis. Jeremy Bailenson, founding director of the Virtual Human Interaction Lab, writes a paper in Technology, Mind, and Behavior titled Nonverbal Overload. He identifies 4 specific mechanisms that make video calls uniquely draining, not just tiring. Uniquely, calls that happen over video tax the brain in ways that audio-only calls and in-person meetings do not. 4 factors. Each one measurable. First factor, excessive eye contact. In a normal meeting, people look at the speaker, they take notes, they glance at a window, they look down. Natural. On video, everyone stares at everyone all the time. A grid of faces, all looking. Even when you are not speaking, faces point at you. Your brain interprets close-up faces as high intensity, confrontation, intimacy, public speaking. These are moments when faces fill your field of vision in real life. Stressful moments. On Zoom, every meeting becomes one. Bailenson notes that the size of faces on screen mimics personal space invasion. If someone stood that close to you in an elevator, you would feel uncomfortable. On video, it is the default for hours. Second factor, the mirror. Walk around all day with someone holding a mirror in front of your face. Every move you make, you see yourself make it. Adjust your hair, see it, lean forward, see it, yawn, see it, scratch your nose, see it. This is video calls. Your own face sits in a box on the screen all day. Research on self-focused attention shows it heightens negative affect, increases anxiety, increases depression. The term coined in research is mirror anxiety. Seeing yourself constantly makes you hyper-aware of how you look. Are you positioned right? Is your expression appropriate? Does your hair look okay? Is the lighting bad? These thoughts loop while you're supposed to focus on what someone is saying. Fauville and colleagues published findings in 2021, studying 10,591 people across Sweden and Stanford. Women report higher mirror anxiety than men, significantly higher. The self-view window hits them harder, not because they care more about appearance, because societal expectations about professional appearance weigh heavier on women. The pressure to look polished, to appear effortlessly competent, to manage both content and presentation simultaneously, it compounds. One participant describes it: staring at my Zoom self-meeting after meeting day after day, this unflattering yawn, that stray hair I cannot touch without seeming nervous. Watching ourselves is exhausting but also compelling. We cannot look away. Third factor, reduced mobility. Humans move when they think, pace while talking on the phone, gesture while explaining ideas, shift weight while listening, walk during brainstorming. Natural. Video calls lock you in a frame. You must stay visible, head and shoulders in the box. Move too much, you drift out of view. Stand up, the camera loses you. Pace, you disappear, so you sit still. Fixed. For hours. Research on movement and cognition published in Frontiers in Public Health in 2018 by Leisman and colleagues shows that 10 minutes of walking before cognitive tasks significantly enhances memory and attention. Physical movement increases brain plasticity. Standing during calls increases alertness, but video calls penalize movement. You must remain static to remain professional. Audio-only calls are different. You can walk, you can pace, you can stand by a window. Movement frees the brain. Studies show that even low-level physical motion, like standing or slow walking, improves problem solving. Myokines, proteins released when muscles contract, enter the bloodstream and boost cognitive function. Video calls strip this away. You sit, you stay, you calcify. Fourth factor, cognitive load. In person, nonverbal communication happens automatically. You read someone's posture. You catch a micro-expression. You sense tension or agreement without thinking about it. Subconscious. On video, you must work to interpret cues. Is that not genuine or laggy internet? Is silence thoughtful or connection issues? Did they understand or are they frozen? You also must work to produce cues. In person, you nod without thinking. On camera, you exaggerate the nod so it reads through the screen. You must think about every gesture, every facial expression. Mental calories burn. This is cognitive load. Video calls demand more mental effort for the same communication. Bailenson calls it transforming one of the most natural things in the world into something that requires thought. Combine all four factors: excessive eye contact, constant self-view, physical restriction, cognitive overload, stack them, run them for 8 hours. Back-to-back meetings, no breaks, the brain drains. Fast. This is not about weak people. This is about brain chemistry, ego depletion, the idea that self-control draws from a limited energy resource. When you spend all day managing how you appear, interpreting ambiguous signals, and staying frozen in a chair, you deplete that resource. By meeting 5, you have nothing left. But here's the part nobody talks about enough. Not everyone experiences this the same way. Some groups get hit harder. Women, new employees, neurodivergent individuals, people with anxiety, people with ADHD, people with autism, marginalized groups who already spend extra energy navigating workplace dynamics. The fatigue is not equal, it is disproportionate, and the camera is the amplifier. Women face unique pressure. Research from Stanford and Sweden published in 2021 shows that women experience higher Zoom fatigue than men even when they use video for the same duration at the same frequency. Why? Self-presentation demands women are socialized to dedicate more mental energy to how they are perceived. They face higher grooming standards, the expectation to look put together, professional, engaged. The mirror effect on camera is not just distracting, it is a psychological burden. Fauville's research team finds that women report significantly higher mirror anxiety. The all-day self-view increases self-focused attention, which research links to reduced participation and engagement. So the very tool meant to improve connection causes women to disengage more. New employees feel it differently, but just as intensely. They have not established rapport. They do not have the social capital to turn cameras off without worry. They fear being perceived as disengaged or unproductive, so they keep cameras on all day, every meeting, trying to prove themselves, The University of Arizona study finds that newer, less tenured employees report heightened fatigue when cameras must stay on. They feel they must be visible to show productivity. The irony is brutal. The effort to appear engaged makes them more fatigued, which actually reduces engagement. Now add neurodivergence, ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, sensory processing differences. For these individuals, video calls are not just tiring. They can be destabilizing. ADHD makes sustained focus difficult. The self-monitoring required when on camera compounds this. You're trying to focus on the meeting content while also monitoring your own behavior, your appearance, your facial expressions, whether you're making appropriate eye contact through the screen. It is dual tasking at a level that overloads working memory. Victoria Tredis, a coach working with neurodivergent adults, explains that online meetings can be particularly tough for those who experience sensory overload and social anxiety, when you consider that neurodiversity affects 15 to 20% of the population. That means 1 in 5 people in your meeting may be struggling significantly more than the others. Autistic individuals face similar challenges. Many autistic people find eye contact uncomfortable or even painful. In person, they can manage this by looking slightly away. On video, everyone is always looking at everyone. There is no escape. The constant gaze feels confrontational. Add the visual stimulation of multiple faces, changing backgrounds, unexpected movements, and the auditory challenges of overlapping voices or audio glitches, and the meeting becomes a sensory minefield. Rebecca Moody, writing for First Ascent Autism Career Development in August 2024, describes it directly. When anxious, pacing helps me calm down. In an ideal meeting, I would keep my camera off with a wireless headset and pace during the call. With my camera off, I give full attention to the meeting instead of monitoring my own thumbnail and overthinking whether my eye contact and body language look appropriate. But the bias runs deep. 93% of executives surveyed in a Viopta study believe that employees with cameras off are paying less attention, slacking, multitasking on unrelated work, maybe scrolling social media. The assumption is immediate. Camera off equals disengagement. The data says otherwise. A 2025 study published in the European Journal of Social Psychology by Stavrova and colleagues examines this exact question. Does camera use actually affect engagement, or is it just perception? They run an experiment. Participants interact in small groups, some with cameras on, some with cameras off. Researchers measure 2 things: how engaged participants feel, how engaged they appear to others. The results split clean. Camera use does not affect self-reported engagement. People feel equally engaged whether their camera is on or off, but observers perceive camera-off participants as less engaged, less trustworthy, less competent. Even when the actual engagement is identical, the reputation hit is real, but it is based on bias, not behavior. Tom Pro and colleagues published findings in 2021 showing that dyads working on problem-solving tasks perform identically whether using video or audio only. No difference in performance, none. The problem-solving ability does not change, but the perception does. Turning off the camera carries social risk even when it improves actual output. Here's where it gets complicated. The people turning cameras off are often the ones protecting their focus. They are the ones managing cognitive load. They are the ones preventing burnout so they can contribute meaningfully instead of performing engagement while their brain shuts down. But they pay a reputational cost for doing so. The very act of protecting their productivity gets read as shirking responsibility. Let's talk about what actually happens when you turn the camera off. Audio-only calls free up cognitive resources. You're not parsing facial expressions through a laggy connection. You're not monitoring your own face. You're not frozen in a chair. You can move. You can stand. You can walk slowly while listening. You can look out a window. You can doodle. These are not distractions. These are focus tools. Research on dual task walking, where people walk while performing cognitive tasks, shows that physical movement during cognitive work can enhance performance. Leesman's 2018 study in Frontiers in Public Health finds that 10 minutes of walking significantly improves sequential memory and attention. The brain performs better when the body moves. Audio-only calls allow this. Video calls do not. You can also redirect attention. When you're not watching yourself, when you're not managing your on-screen presence, you can dedicate full cognitive resources to what is being said. Gabriel's research finds exactly this. Participants report that turning off video allowed them to stop concentrating on their own faces and focus more on meeting content. The lack of self-view is not a loss, it is a gain. You stop performing, you start processing. For neurodivergent individuals, the difference is even starker. Turning off the camera can mean the difference between participating and shutting down. An autistic employee describes needing the camera off to avoid the distraction of monitoring their own behavior and the sensory overload of seeing multiple faces. An employee with ADHD explains that with the camera off, they can fidget, pace, and use movement to maintain focus instead of fighting to sit still and look attentive. These are not accommodations for laziness. These are accommodations for optimal performance. But here's the trap. Many workplaces stigmatize camera-off behavior. Managers interpret it as disengagement. Colleagues view it as antisocial. HR guidelines encourage cameras on for team cohesion. The message is clear. Being seen equals being present. The problem is that being seen often prevents being present. The visual performance of engagement undermines actual engagement. This is where policy matters. Allison Gabriel's recommendation from the University of Arizona study is direct. Do not expect employees to turn cameras on. Give them autonomy. Let them choose. Do not make assumptions about distractedness or productivity if someone keeps the camera off. Employees who feel autonomous and supported perform better. Forcing cameras on for the sake of optics backfires. You get visual compliance. You lose cognitive engagement. Some companies have started adapting. Zoom itself, the company synonymous with video fatigue, has internal employee resource groups focused on neurodiversity. Their neuro-inclusive approach includes explicit permission to turn cameras off, no questions asked, no justification needed. They have also built product features to support this. Hide self-view, stop incoming video. These are not bugs. These are accessibility features. Kelsey, a Zoom employee, notes that the ability to hide self-view or stop all incoming video gives neurodivergent people a much-needed visual break so they can focus on the conversation. Automatic captioning helps those with auditory processing challenges. Post-meeting transcripts allow people to revisit content they missed while managing cognitive load during the live call. The argument for cameras on usually rests on trust and connection. Seeing faces builds rapport. It humanizes remote work. It prevents people from becoming disembodied voices. True, to a point, but there is a threshold. Cameras on for a quick one-on-one check-in where relationship building as the goal makes sense. Cameras on for an 8-person budget review that could have been an email does not. Cameras on for an hour-long brainstorm might actively hinder creativity. A study published in Nature in 2022 by researchers at Columbia and Stanford examines this exact question. Does video help or hurt brainstorming? They test virtual pairs versus in-person pairs on idea generation. In-person pairs generate an average of 16.77 ideas. Virtual pairs generate 14.74. Virtual interaction narrows visual focus. Participants fixate on faces instead of thinking expansively. Melinda Marcus, author of Read the Zoom, explains that the brain focuses too much on the visuals of faces instead of focusing inward on ideas. Cameras on during creative work can actively suppress creativity. The very meetings where we most need divergent thinking are the ones where video might hurt most. Here's the other factor nobody mentions enough: cultural and demographic differences in how fatigue manifests. A Stanford study finds that people of color report slightly higher Zoom fatigue than white participants. The reasons are layered. Microaggressions can happen on camera just as they do in person. The pressure to code switch or perform professionalism in ways that feel inauthentic increases. Bias about what professional looks like, what backgrounds are acceptable, what appearance signals competence. These biases do not disappear on video. They intensify. The camera becomes a lens through which bias operates. Amy Bonomi, a social science researcher at Michigan State University, points out that video meetings can invoke unconscious bias. A visible wedding photo with an opposite-sex spouse reinforces heteronormative assumptions. A messy room visible in the background might get read as unprofessional, even though it is just someone's home. Video gives observers more information to form judgments. Not all of it relevant, not all of it fair. Turning the camera off removes some of these vectors for bias. It does not eliminate them, but it reduces them. Now let's look at the numbers around meeting culture more broadly. Because the camera question sits inside a larger problem. Too many meetings. FlowTrace analyzes millions of meetings in 2024. They find that only 37% of meetings use an agenda. 37%. That means 63% of meetings start with no clear plan, just talking, hoping something useful emerges. The same data shows that only 37% of meetings result in a decision. Most meetings end without resolving anything. Executives say 67% of meetings are failures, not close calls, failures. And yet the number of meetings has tripled since 2020. Employees now spend 11.3 hours per week in meetings, nearly a third of the work week, sitting, talking, deciding nothing. Attention collapses fast. 52% of attendees lose attention within the first 30 minutes. By 50 minutes, 96% have mentally checked out. What are they doing instead? 73% multitask during meetings. 55% respond to emails. 39% read news online. 40% of women shop online during meetings. 40% of men read news. 91% admit to daydreaming. These are not bad employees. These are people stuck in meetings that should not exist. Now add cameras. Force everyone to keep cameras on. What happens? They still multitask. They still daydream. They still disengage. But now they also burn cognitive energy maintaining the appearance of engagement, nodding at the right times, making eye contact with the camera, not letting their face betray boredom. The meeting stays unproductive, but the fatigue increases. You get the worst of both worlds. No output, maximum exhaustion. Compare that to camera off. People still might multitask, but they are not also performing. They are not splitting attention between appearing engaged and actually engaging. If they need to step away to handle something urgent, they can. If they need to pace to think, they can. If they need a visual break to process what was just said, they can take it. The meeting might still be bad. But the damage is contained. Fatigue does not spiral. Here's the part that hurts. The people most likely to benefit from cameras off are the people least able to do it without penalty. Junior employees, women, people of color, neurodivergent individuals, exactly the groups already navigating additional workplace challenges. They need the autonomy most. They get it least. The organizational cost of this is massive. Burnout, turnover, disengagement. When people feel forced to perform engagement instead of actually engaging, they burn out. Gabriel's research shows that fatigue from camera use reduces voice in meetings. People speak up less, contribute less, withdraw, you lose their ideas, you lose their perspective. Not because they do not have anything to say, because they are too drained to say it. Let's look at what good policy looks like. First, make camera use optional by default, not encouraged. Optional. The default should be that cameras off is acceptable and normal. Do not frame it as a special accommodation people must request. Frame it as standard practice. If someone wants their camera on, great. If someone needs it off, equally great. No explanation required. Second, communicate this explicitly at the start of meetings. Do not assume people know it is okay. Say it. While seeing your faces is great, cameras are not required. Feel free to keep them off as needed. Say it in one-on-ones, say it in large meetings, repeat it regularly, normalize it. Third, do not make assumptions. If someone has their camera off, do not assume they are disengaged. Do not call them out. Do not ask them to turn it on unless the meeting format specifically requires visual input, like American Sign Language interpretation. Judge engagement by contribution, not visibility. Fourth, design better meetings. If the meeting does not need to happen, cancel it. If it does not need everyone, make some invites optional. FlowTrace data shows only 12.6% of meeting invites are marked optional. That number should be much higher. If the meeting does not need video, make it audio only or asynchronous. Not every discussion requires real-time faces. Fifth, protect focus time. Microsoft data from 2025 shows that 57% of meetings are ad hoc with no calendar invite. 1 in 10 scheduled meetings get booked right before they start. This chaos kills deep work. People need uninterrupted blocks to think. Schedule meetings in clusters. Protect mornings or afternoons as meeting free. Let people opt out of non-essential calls without consequence. Sixth, train managers. The Viopta survey showing 93% of executives assume camera off employees are slacking is the problem. Managers need to understand the science. Camera off does not mean checked out. Often it means the opposite. Someone protecting their focus so they can contribute meaningfully. Train managers to evaluate performance by output, not optics. Now let's talk about what this means for individuals. If you are someone who needs cameras off to function well, here is the reality. The bias exists. You might face judgment. The key is to manage it strategically. In one-on-ones or small meetings where relationship matters, consider cameras on. In large meetings, status updates or information dumps, cameras off is defensible. Communicate when needed. I'm keeping my camera off today to minimize distractions and focus on the content. Most people will accept it when you name it. If you are neurodivergent and cameras on causes significant distress, that is a reasonable accommodation under disability law in many countries. You should not have to disclose your diagnosis to get it, but if you are comfortable doing so, framing it as an access need can help. Some people find it useful to say something like, I process information better with my camera off. Can we make that the norm for our team? That opens the door without requiring personal disclosure. If you are a manager, your behavior sets the norm. If you default to camera off in meetings where video is not essential, your team will feel safer doing the same. If you explicitly give permission, people will take it. The power differential matters. Junior people watch what senior people do. Be the person who makes it okay. And if you are advocating for policy change, bring the research. The Journal of Applied Psychology study by Shockley and Gabriel. The Stanford Analysis by Bailenson. The European Journal of Social Psychology, study by Stavrova. These are peer-reviewed, published, rigorous. They are not opinion pieces. They are science. Use them. When someone says cameras off means disengagement, show them the data that says the opposite. When someone says we need cameras for accountability, show them the data that performance does not change. Evidence moves the conversation. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Even with all the research, some workplaces will not change. Some managers will not budge. The culture of visibility runs deep. In those environments, you have a choice. Comply and manage the fatigue as best you can, or leave for a workplace that respects how you work best. That sounds dramatic, but burnout is real. If your workplace demands you perform engagement to the point of exhaustion while producing less, that is not sustainable. No job is worth losing your mental health over. There are companies that get this. Find them. The broader point is this. We are living through a massive experiment in how humans work. Remote work, hybrid work, distributed teams. This is not going back to 2019. The question is not whether we will keep using video calls. We will. The question is whether we will use them intelligently. Whether we will recognize that the tool that was supposed to save us from isolation is also capable of destroying focus. Whether we will give people autonomy over how they show up. Or whether we will keep insisting that being seen equals being present even as the research piles up saying otherwise. Because the data is clear. Camera use increases fatigue. It does not improve engagement. It does not enhance performance. It does, however, affect reputation. People judge you for having it off. That gap between reality and perception is where the damage happens. We are measuring the wrong thing. We are optimizing for the appearance of work instead of the substance of it. And the people paying the price are the ones trying to do the work well. 2022. European Journal of Social Psychology publishes the Stavrova study. Participants interact in small groups, some with cameras on, some off. Self-reported engagement shows no difference. Observer perception shows camera-off participants rated as less trustworthy, less competent, less leader-like. The disconnect is documented. You can be fully engaged with your camera off, but you will be judged as if you are not. The study also finds that camera use does not affect self-reported fatigue or well-being in their specific experimental setup. This seems to contradict Gabriel's findings, but the key is context. Stavrova's study involves short getting acquainted interactions among strangers. Gabriel's study involves 4 weeks of real work meetings with established teams. The difference is duration and stakes. Short interactions, camera might not drain you. Hours of daily meetings, it does. The reputational risk exists in both. The fatigue shows up under sustained load. This is the paradox. Short-term, no. Turning your camera on might not hurt much. It might even help with initial rapport. Long-term, across hours of daily meetings, it accumulates into fatigue that reduces your actual contribution. So, which do you optimize for? The initial impression or the sustained performance? Most workplaces optimize for impression. We front-load visibility, we backload exhaustion, and then we wonder why people burn out. Here is what the future could look like if we get it right. Meetings have clear purposes. Social connection meetings, cameras on make sense. Decision-making meetings, cameras optional. Information transfer, async or audio only. Brainstorming, maybe no meeting at all. Just share docs and comments. We stop defaulting to synchronous video for everything. We give people time to think. We measure contribution by what they produce, not whether we saw their face. We train managers to understand cognitive load. We normalize camera off as a focus tool, not a red flag. We stop penalizing the very behaviors that protect productivity. We build cultures where saying I need my camera off today to focus is met with sure. Thanks for letting me know instead of suspicion. Where neurodivergent employees do not have to choose between access needs and being perceived as team players. Where women do not spend mental energy managing appearance while also managing content. Where junior employees do not have to prove engagement through performance theater. This is not soft stuff. This is performance optimization. You want better meetings? Make them shorter, make them fewer, make them purposeful, and let people show up in ways that let them actually contribute instead of ways that look like contributing. The person with their camera off pacing by the window while listening intently is more valuable than the person with their camera on nodding while mentally checked out. We know this. The research proves it. The question is whether we are willing to act on it. The irony is brutal. We moved to video calls to stay connected during isolation, to maintain humanity in a distanced world, and we succeeded. But we also created a new form of exhaustion. One where the very act of being seen becomes the thing that drains us, where the tool meant to bring us together becomes the thing we need protection from. Not because video is bad, but because we use it badly. Too much, too long, for the wrong reasons. And without recognizing that not everyone experiences it the same way, Gabriel's final recommendation is simple. Autonomy. Let people choose. Respect their choice. Do not assume disengagement. Support them so they can be at their best. That is it. Not complicated, not expensive. Just requires letting go of the belief that seeing someone means knowing they are working. Because you do not. The most checked out people are often the ones performing engagement most convincingly. The most focused people are often the ones who turned the camera off so they could stop performing and start thinking. Two groups of employees exist right now. One group has cameras on in every meeting, smiling, nodding, looking engaged, slowly burning cognitive resources until they have nothing left. The other group has cameras off when it makes sense. Moving when they need to move, looking away when they need to process, protecting their focus so they can contribute substance instead of appearance. The first group looks productive. The second group often is productive. We have been rewarding the wrong one. May 2025, Carbon, a workplace software company, publishes an analysis titled Camera Off, Brain On. They break down the research and add a critical insight. Audio-only calls are not the same as Zoom calls with all black boxes. If everyone is on video but cameras off, you still have the constraints. You are still locked to your computer. You are still static. That is the worst of both worlds. True audio only means people can walk away from the screen, can pace, can move freely. That distinction matters. A phone call where you can walk around your house is cognitively different from a video call where your camera is off, but you must stay in frame in case someone asks you to turn it on. Freedom of movement changes how the brain works. Restricting it changes how the brain works. We have research proving this. We ignore it. Here is the final piece. Movement releases myokines. These are proteins released when muscles contract during even light activity like walking or standing. Myokines enter the bloodstream and cross the blood-brain barrier. They enhance cognitive function, improve memory, boost alertness. Sitting still for 8 hours blocks this. You are not just locked in a chair. You are cutting off a natural cognitive enhancement system. Video calls that demand you stay visible, demand you stay still. They demand you cut off myokine release. They demand you trade movement for visibility. The cost is your brain function. One more finding. Chaddock Heyman and colleagues published research showing that children with higher physical fitness have thicker, denser white matter in the brain. White matter connects different gray matter regions. Better white matter means better communication between brain areas, better memory, better attention, better cognitive control, physical fitness. Even just regular movement builds the infrastructure your brain needs to think well. Video calls attack this infrastructure. They force stillness. They force you to sit and stare and manage your face while your brain slowly loses the physical support it needs to perform. This is not abstract. This is neuroscience. Movement builds brains. Stillness degrades them. Video culture enforces stillness. We are degrading cognitive performance in the name of engagement. Research from McDonnell and colleagues in 2013 shows that a single 30-minute bout of aerobic exercise increases brain plasticity with measurable improvements in memory and motor skill coordination. One session, 30 minutes. Significant gains. Now imagine the inverse. 8 hours of enforced stillness, multiple days. Compounding. The cognitive cost accumulates. You are not just tired. Your brain is literally less plastic, less adaptable, less able to learn and solve problems. All because we need to see your face in a box. One last study. Journal of Occupational Health Psychology, 2023. Nurmi and Pakarinen investigate whether virtual meeting fatigue affects cognitive performance. They test people after video meetings, cognitive tasks, memory tasks, attention tasks. Fatigue after video meetings predicts worse cognitive performance. The exhaustion is not just subjective feeling. It is measurable cognitive decline. Your brain performs worse after prolonged video meetings. Not after prolonged in-person meetings, not after prolonged audio calls, after video meetings specifically. The mechanism is the 4 factors Beilinson identified: excessive eye contact, mirror effect, reduced mobility, cognitive overload. These factors combine to produce not just tiredness, but actual cognitive impairment. And yet, managers still believe cameras off means slacking. 93% of executives in the Viopta survey, nearly all of them, the belief persists despite the evidence. Why? Because visibility feels like accountability. Seeing people makes us feel like we know what they are doing. It is an illusion, but it is a comfortable illusion. Letting go requires trusting that people will work even when you cannot watch them. That is hard for some managers, so they demand cameras, and cognitive performance declines, and fatigue increases, and people burn out. But at least we can see them, right? Wrong. Seeing them does not mean they are working. It means they are performing visibility while their brain shuts down. The people doing the best work are often the ones you cannot see, because they have protected their focus. They have preserved their cognitive resources. They have refused to trade substance for appearance, and they pay a price for it. Lower performance reviews, perceptions of disengagement, being passed over for leadership opportunities. Starova's study finds that camera-off participants are rated as less leader-like. Literally, same engagement, same contribution, but less visible, so less valued. This is the cost. The people protecting their productivity get punished for it. The people performing productivity get rewarded. And the organization suffers because the work that gets rewarded is the work that looks like work, not the work that is work. We have built systems that optimize for optics, and we wonder why output does not match effort, because effort is invisible, focus is invisible, deep thinking is invisible. What is visible is a face in a box nodding along. So that is what we reward. And the best people leave, because they know the difference between being seen and being effective, and when forced to choose, they choose effective somewhere else. The solution is not complicated. Give autonomy. Respect choice. Measure output. Stop measuring optics. Let people work the way they work best. Some people need cameras on. Some people need them off. Neither is wrong. Both are valid. The question is not which is better. The question is whether you trust people to know what they need. If you do not trust them, you have a trust problem, not a camera problem. Fix the trust. The cameras will follow. Final numbers. Journal of Applied Psychology. 4-week study. 103 participants. 1,400 observations. Camera use predicts fatigue, not meeting length, not meeting count. Camera use. European Journal of Social Psychology. 177 participants. Camera off reduces self-reported fatigue for actors. Increases negative perception from observers. The gap is real. Technology of mind and behavior. Stanford. 4 mechanisms of exhaustion. Excessive eye contact. Mirror effect. Reduced mobility. Cognitive load. All 4 unique to video. Frontiers in public health. 10 minutes of walking improves memory and attention. Video calls eliminate walking. 2021 study from Sweden and Stanford. 10,591 participants. Women experience higher Zoom fatigue than men. Mirror anxiety drives it. These are not opinions. These are peer-reviewed findings from major universities published in top-tier journals. The science is in. Cameras on increases fatigue. Cameras off preserves focus. The trade-off is real. You can have visibility or you can have cognitive performance. You cannot have both at scale, not sustainably. Not across 8-hour days of back-to-back meetings. The question is, which you value more? Most organizations say they value performance. Their policies say they value visibility. The gap between rhetoric and reality is where employees burn out. So, when you keep your camera off, you're not slacking, you're not disengaged, you're making a choice. Maybe a conscious one, maybe an instinctive one. But a choice that protects your ability to focus, to process, to contribute substance instead of appearance. The research backs you. The bias does not navigate that gap carefully. But know this. The person staring at their own face in a box for 8 hours is not more productive than you. They are just more visible, and visibility is not the same as value. You close your laptop, 11 at night, 15 meetings today. Camera on for all of them. You contributed, you nodded, you engaged, you did everything right, and you feel like you did nothing because you spent the day performing work instead of doing work, and your brain knows the difference. Tomorrow you'll do it again, or maybe tomorrow you turn the camera off, not to hide, to focus, not to disengage, to engage more fully, because the research says you are right, even if the bias says you're not. Protect your focus. Your brain will thank you. Your work will show it, even if your manager does not see it.